Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Wildcat Way Show. I am Kari Valance.
And I'm Kendale Lumpkins. Welcome to the newly dropped episode of the Wildcat Way Show, a show in which we hope inspires and encourage all who are watching on YouTube and or listening on our podcast.
Now, the Wildcat Way Show will drop a new episode every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. We will discuss current events and topics that are impacting us in our communities, and we're going to talk about how we are intentionally staying positive through all aspects of our lives. Now, last episode, we talked about overcoming your past, and this time we want to talk about how you're going to better prepare for your future and be positive in that. I think that's really important as you're working towards bettering your future, to not let things that have happened in your past kind of keep you bogged down.
Yeah, and Kari, I'm gonna tell you, I think that's a challenge too. And I know people make it look easy, but you don't forget some of that stuff, right? Some of that stuff lives with you forever. And one of the things that actually helped me was realizing that my future was spotless, although my past was kind of messy.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, okay.
So understanding that, hey, although you made some mistakes in the past, there's a future that you can go create.
Sure.
That is spotless. There's no mistakes there. Not that you're not going to make any there, but just understanding that, because I think so often we look at our past and we think this is the rest of our lives. Like, I can never change. I'll always be like this.
Right.
And then I don't think that's true, especially not for me, because I've seen myself overcome it because of that.
I think that's where a lot of people kind of do a disservice to themselves, right? They get so in their own head about the troubles from their past or the mistakes that they may have made. And sometimes you can become consumed with thinking that that's just going to be your repetitive nature. But you have to remember that you're the one who has that choice to change the course of your life, right?
Right.
So I think that if you're mindful in that, and you one thing I think that's so important if you're trying to really work at changing your future, is to do your work on yourself.
And Kari, I think a lot of people miss that.
Right.
When I say the work that you do on yourself, because what happens is we're all, like, I think whenever we're doing the show and we're talking about the show, I think we want to know the end from the beginning, but that's not real. And so a lot of times we want to see the outward appearance. We want to know that it's happening or it's changing fast. But like, the real work starts on the inside.
Absolutely.
Right? Your character, your integrity, you start to work on some of those issues, start to change some of your habits. And I think that's whenever your life starts to change, because the change may not really look tangible right away, right? You could be changing and nobody notice it, but something happening on the inside of you, like, hey, I'm different. I don't like to do the same stuff. I don't think like I used to think. I don't even want to be a part of the things that I used to be a part of, right?
Absolutely. And I think that sometimes too, it can be a small thing. Like you said, like, you can wake up one day and realize, you know what? I don't want to go hang out at this person's house today. Maybe I didn't have the best experience, or I didn't feel comfortable. I don't like the way that the outcome led up to at the last time that we were hanging out. So I'd like to make a change. That one small change, that one change of your mind can really kick off the rest of your life, right? Just by you making a decision and deciding to do something different with the course of your path can completely change your future.
And Kari, I'm gonna tell you another thing that I struggled so much with was like, I'm hard on myself. And I'm like, to an extreme, right? So whenever I'm late, whenever I miss the mark, whenever I do anything, and I still struggle with this today, but I've been able to overcome it because I allow myself to be human. And so I think a lot of times whenever you have this false perception of perfection, that you're supposed to live a perfect life and nothing is supposed to go wrong, and the mistakes are like fatal, then I think it's harder to come back from. And I'm telling you, like, I am really, really hard on myself when it comes to that. And I think me overcoming that part of my life helped me to think about a future that was much brighter, because I stopped beating myself down so bad about the mistakes and where I come from. So it helped me to prepare, say, okay, Kendale, you can still go be who you were created to be. Your future is still spotless, but if you keep beating yourself down over being human, making the mistakes that you made, it's hard to look forward to another future or a better future.
Everyone does that. I mean, sometimes I will literally be sound asleep and wake up at 2 a.m. and think of something that I did or said a Tuesday ago, and I'm like, Kari, why did you say that? Or why did you react that way? Or why didn't you think about what you were going to say first? And you know, then you have to just kind of process it and let it go, because I can promise you, a majority of the time, the other people that maybe were involved with that have already moved on, aren't second questioning everything like that. You just have to make the decision to say, okay, what's done is done. I'll do better next time. And I have to move forward.
And I'm telling you, like, many people don't have this kind of conversation. But a lot of people struggle with that because I'm even married, right? So both of us are married.
Right.
And I may have made some mistakes 2 and 3 years into my marriage that may come up now. I'm like, man, I wish I wouldn't have said that. Wish I wouldn't have did that, right? But the reality is I can still be a good husband.
Sure.
There's so much more ahead of me than it is behind me, right? And I tell young people that all the time. They always talk about, like, for instance, they're in relationships and they've got into a relationship that's bad and they don't need to be in it. And it's hard for them to let it go. And I'm like, think about, you got 25, 30, 40 more years left to live. Would you want to live it like this? Would you want to be miserable? Right. So I think looking towards a better future helps you with your perspective and your mindset.
And I think that's important too, in that what you just touched on. You have to be kind to yourself and be gentle to yourself, and not, like you said, like beat yourself up about things, or not think that, hey, I've been in this relationship for already put 2 years in it, I guess this is where I'm stuck. Well, you don't have to stay miserable forever, you know, or even if you made a decision, I want to, you know, study this, where actually I don't feel fulfilled if I'm studying this course here at PRCC, I'd rather transfer to something else, but I already put a semester into it. Well, that doesn't mean your whole life has to be unhappy because of that. You know, it could be things that we're talking about can partake into any aspect of your life, right? So if you are just kind to yourself and gentle and mindful, you have the power to change your future. And
then you think about starting over. Right. There's nothing wrong with starting over. We hate to do it. Right. But it's okay to start over. Right. It's okay to do the things that are hard and not comfortable. Because Kari, I'm telling you, like, and I know we talk about working out and you talk about the envy or me waking up in the morning and you're jealous of that. Like, you would be amazed that this is not how I always been. Right. Like, I can tell you 5:30 in the morning, whenever I got to be an adult and my daddy stopped waking me up at 6 o'clock in the morning, I wanted to sleep all day. Right. But I made a change in my mind. I said, Kendale, you're gonna have to start doing some uncomfortable stuff in order to get a better result. And I think so often we just like comfort so much that we stick with that and we don't want to change. I'm talking about, like, to the point where people do things that they know are unhealthy, that they indulge in, that they know are hurting them, but just won't change it, won't do anything different. And I'm just wired totally different now, to the point where I don't want to make any excuses. I don't want to give myself a way out because I'm looking for one all the time. Always. Right. Then you have to consciously, because I mean, I feel you on that, because I'll be already like in my comfy slippers, sitting on my couch, we put the kids to bed, and then I'm like, you know what, I didn't work out. What if I just spend half an hour doing like some leg workouts or stuff, and I just make myself do it? Then I'm so much more proud of myself after, and I feel like I've accomplished it, and then I feel good about taking my bath and reading my book and relaxing for the evening. It's just, if you make the decision to do something that you know is going to have a positive impact on you, that if I would have just skipped one day of a leg day, it wouldn't have been the end of the world. But then today I'm like, well, I'm a little busy this afternoon. Maybe I won't go for my 30-minute walk. And then tomorrow, well, you know, it's a Friday. Maybe I don't feel like doing it. So you just keep making excuse because you're comfortable. And then you're just falling back into your past. You're not building forward towards your future. And Kari, I think by nature, we're wired for instant gratification. Like, we want to see instant results. And if I go to the gym and I don't see a muscle pop out right away this first workout, you see what I'm saying? I'm talking about it needs to happen right away. So people quit in that process. They let the process chump them out or make them feel like, oh, it's not going to work. But the future requires that. The future requires you to stop looking for instant results right away and say, because I made this mess, it's not going to change overnight. I didn't get in the mess overnight, and then I'm not going to come out overnight. Whether that's your health, that's your whatever, that your mindset, your money, your marriage, all of that stuff, you have to be okay with saying, I'm going to do this until I see the result that I want. Well, it's just all about putting in work, right? With everything, with working out, with our marriages, with our education. Like you said in our last episode, you know, you made a mistake in a class. I made tons of mistakes all through school, but then every time I would go back, I would seek help and I would make sure that I was doing better, and I would think about, what did I do wrong last time, so I can make sure I don't make that same mistake again, so I can move forward and get this done. And Kari, it leads into another point that when you said ask for help. And I'm going to just tell you from a man's perspective. Yeah, y'all don't do it. We don't like asking for help. I know. I'm talking about we'll die before I'm talking about we'll mess our whole lives up before we get help. And so it was a humbling experience for me. because I had a lot of pride in my 20s. In my teens, in my 20s, I was a real prideful guy. I thought I had it all figured out. I thought I knew what I knew and couldn't nobody tell me anything, right? And although I was okay, I was approachable, I was a good guy, I still had this bravado about myself to where, man, I'm not gonna ask for help. Because I could do this, I could figure this out. How foolish. I'm telling you, is that mindset.
Back, you can see it now.
Oh, because I have people in my life that have lived longer than me that are just waiting for you to say something. So the same thing happens whenever I'm talking to young people and I'm mentoring them and I'm like, I'm just waiting for you to talk because I've been where you are. All you gotta do is ask for help. I know how to help you get out of this situation. I can't do it for you, but I have some advice for you. And young people, especially old, I'm talking about men, I am so fixed-headed when it comes to this. Fearing asking people for help, fearing they're gonna say no, fearing what they'll think about me because I don't know something.
That's what I was gonna ask you. Where do you think that comes from? I'm not talking about just like all men in general, but for you personally, why do you think that you harbor that fear about asking for help?
So at the time, whenever I did it, because it's this insecurity about yourself. Where you're insecure and you want to appear to know everything. Right? And so what that does is that you give off this false sense of security when you think, oh, I can walk around and I look like I got it going on, and then behind closed doors, I look myself in the mirror, I'm really not. I really don't have it all figured out. So I think that's where a lot of it came from, the pride, the insecure parts of me, not wanting to be exposed, not wanting to be vulnerable enough to ask questions, right? So now it's not a unmanly thing to be vulnerable. Like my wife, whenever something don't go right, I tell her how this made me feel. But I would have never done that 20 and 15 years ago. I would have never told her, hey, this hurt my feelings, or I'm struggling with this, or I need help in this area. I would have never done that then, but I understand that holds me back. That keeps me stuck.
So you had to come to that realization.
Without a doubt.
Conscious of the fact, again, like we talk about being mindful, being respectful of yourself. That way you can have a talk, like an internal talk sometimes can change the world for you. You know, if you just take a look at yourself in the mirror and say, Kari, Kendale, what you are doing is not working. Let's change it. Let's try to make it better for your future. And that's really all it takes sometimes. And I feel like sometimes people are just too insecure, too scared. They want to have that bravado of people looking at them and people thinking they've got it going on. They know exactly what they're doing. Nobody knows what they're doing 100%
all
of the time. I know what I'm doing in my office and like 50% of the time with my kids. Other than that, I'm like, can you help me with this? Can you help me with this? Because there are a lot of things I don't know.
So Kari, think about this. So you're married and you have kids. You've never been married before. This is the first time you're doing it. This is the first time you're being a parent. Now you have a couple kids and you say, okay, the second time around, but every situation is different.
Oh my God, my daughter is completely different than my older son. My older son is just calm and relaxed and easygoing and goes with the flow. My daughter's favorite word is no. I'm like, do you want to do your hair? No. Do you want to wear a dress? No. Do you want candy? No. I'm like, yes, you do. You do want the candy. So you cannot compare. They're not apples to apples at all. I have to seek out Google, my mother, my sister, asking people for advice, and them just saying, kids are different. You just have to go with it, you know? Are you ready to join the fastest growing community college in Mississippi? Pearl River Community College is ready for you. With improvements at each of our 4 locations in Poplarville, Hattiesburg, Waveland, and online, securing your future has never been more exciting. 42 career and technical programs and academic transfer options allow you to build a bright future at the river. When faced with adversity, Wildcats never quit. Visit prcc.edu to learn more.
And so I can remember, and probably in 15 years when my son sees this video, he'll probably want to fight me for it. But so I get real frustrated when at a time when he was embarrassed. Like, so at a program, a graduation, if he makes eye contact with me and I couldn't figure it out, he would just cry. He would have a meltdown. And I'm telling you, it was so rough for me dealing with that to the point where it frustrated me, and all I could remember was my daddy, because I knew what my daddy would have did. My daddy would probably took me, hey, come on, let's go have a conversation. So I go talk to my pastor one day, and man, this is talking about the getting help part of being a parent. He has a son that's much older than mine, and he was like, Kendale, just relax.
It happens.
Like he gonna be okay. But if I would have been in my own head,
you wanted to fix the problem instead of just letting him go through it and feel the emotions a little bit.
And imagine what my future with my son would have been like in those encounters.
If you tried to like break him of that.
So now my son comes to me, whether he's feeling bad, hurting, I want to be a safe place for him.
Sure, he's comfortable.
But I could have messed up the future by trying to do it myself and not getting help. Or if you would have
done like how we were taught to do in the past, how your dad did with you, if you would have like perpetuated the past like that, it could have changed y'all's relationship in the future.
And Kari, and I love my mom and daddy.
Sure.
Right? And they know this. Like whenever they call, I'm always there. I'm just not of the thought that just because I saw my mom or daddy do it, that it was right.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So, and I think a lot of times we have to overcome a lot of the teaching. Sure. A lot of the things that we saw. We have to unlearn a lot of behavior that we grew up watching.
Right.
And not that they were terrible people, but if you want something different for your life, you're going to have to make different choices and so you can get a different result.
Well, that goes with anything, right? Anybody that's watching this, just because things that were in our past are from 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Right.
Our life is different now, right? Life on this world is completely different with social media, with 24-hour news, with just the college experience, with this pandemic. Everything is so different. So a lot of times you can't just relive the past over and over again. You can't do things the same way. I mean, we're not even doing like our football season here the same way that we did last year, you know? So you have to kind of keep that mindset too. Like, okay, that might have worked then. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work now or into the future. You have to adapt to the changes and try to figure out what's going to work best for you in that situation.
And I think too, like when you talk about 20 years ago, so I come from a place where it was hard to trust people. And this is just me being like transparent. Like you didn't trust a lot of people.
Right.
Because a lot of people could be jealous. You never know their angle. You never know their motive. So a lot of my future has become much better than my past because I learned to trust people.
Okay, good.
I got closer to folks that I knew that really genuinely cared, that I knew if I asked them something, they would give me sound advice. They wouldn't shame me for it. They wouldn't look at me like I was crazy. If I told them a mistake I made, if I told them where I failed at. I have people in my life now that are some solid folks. And whenever I go to them, it's just me and them talking. It's just a conversation, right? And I think that has helped me come out of the shell of saying, let me just figure this out myself.
Right.
Let me just do this on my own, because that can be, and I'm not saying it don't come from a real place, because the response that you get from people can hinder how you treat other people.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And the way they treated you, in your mind, you would think everybody's the same. Everybody's just like that. So that's what helps me in my just overcoming the past, overcoming what I think about people and how I see certain situations, and knowing that there's some genuine people out there that want to help you be better.
Well, then also speaking of other people like that, you have to keep in mind that not all people are thinking the same exact way that you are. Not all people are like willing to accept that they may have been at fault at anything, or that they're not willing to apologize, right? So I think it's really important in situations like this to be a little more self-centered and think about yourself in this aspect. How am I going to make sure that my future is the best that it can be, right? Sometimes you can't always worry about everybody else that was involved in your past.
Exactly.
If you're trying to move forward and make your life better for yourself, your family, your future family, whatever that may be, you have to be the ones who's conscious enough to make the decision, this is what I'm going to do. Yeah,
and Kari, like, so I read books now because I'm thinking about myself. I'm thinking about what I want for my future. This is not common with the circles that I used to be in, reading books. And not that we couldn't read or anything, it's just that we didn't think that was valuable.
That wasn't a common pastime.
Yeah, but now I understand, man, there's knowledge, there's information in books. You listen to other people's life story on a podcast and it'll inspire you and it'll give you hope and say, you know what? I can go do it if he did it too. So that's what I think working towards a better future does whenever you start applying different principles. Start surrounding yourself around different people. Start realizing, hey man, I can go create a future. Although the past is messy, I can go create one that's spotless. And I'm gonna still be able to overcome some of the mistakes I made. So I just think that that's what helped me get to this place in my life, because school for me wasn't always something that I cared too much about. But now as a man, I understand the value. I understand my kids need that.
Right.
And so I think over time, you get it over time. And if I could encourage anybody with anything, I would say, man, just be patient with yourself.
Right. And I think that being patient with yourself and accepting that change needs to come is also a part of thinking about the different emotions that you're having, right?
Yeah.
Say that you're going through something right now. Today is the Tuesday when this is going to air. By Thursday, you may feel differently about it. And you have to allow yourself to feel those things, right? Because I think we've talked about before how you've said that, you can sometimes let your emotions get to you and drive you, but then you have to actually think about it. What are making these emotions come to? And once you get down to the root of that can completely change your mindset going forward.
And it's tough because the conversations, we don't have them much. We don't talk about it. Nobody talks about it. So in isolation, you think that this is normal. You think that I'm supposed to act this way. You think I'm supposed to feel like this, but that's not true, right? So being okay with, hey, I'm having a bad moment, right? I'm not feeling the best right now. Mentally, I'm not where I need to be. The best thing I can say about myself in those moments is that I've learned not to respond. I've learned not to let what I'm feeling make me act in a way that may damage a situation in the future. Because I think our overreaction to the problem, our overreaction to where we think we need to be right now, and this brings me to another point. The reality in our heads hardly ever match reality in real life.
Absolutely.
Right? And so I think it'll be a gap where you're always discouraged if you let the reality that you see in your mind, because in my mind I'm supposed to be a millionaire somewhere. I'm supposed to already have something figured out.
I'm beach in Tahiti and
yes, but the reality is that it may take time to get to this place. But so I think what the picture in our heads make us struggle so much, because we're like, man, if I can't get the picture in my head to line up, then I just might as well just give up on life, give up on my future. And I don't think that's real.
I think a lot of people do that too. They kind of bury into themselves. You've made a mistake, you maybe double down on that mistake and done something else again quite right after. You still can pull yourself up, right? You can still change your future. No matter how much trouble you think you might be in or what other kind of detrimental thing might have happened, you have the power to change it every single minute of the day by doing something different. Asking for help, having a talk with yourself, trying to reach out to different groups and learn something new about something. Maybe you said the wrong thing because you were ignorant of that topic. Then reach out to someone and ask for their advice and say, hey, I might not have been looking at it from your perspective. Can you teach me? Are you willing to show me the way? And I feel like, again, like you said, not being insecure enough to ask for help. Those are all just different ways that you can make a change to positively impact your future just by reaching out to people.
And Kari, I know we do a good bit of talking, but one of the things that has helped me is whenever I'm in a room with other folks that I know that know more than me, I don't say much. Because I've learned more by listening than I have by telling people what I know. Right? And so I'm telling you, I got one of my mentors, I'm talking about like a godfather to me, he's in his 70s. And whenever he's in the room, I don't say much. Because I know he's lived 40 plus years longer than me. So I'm learning about my future from his past.
Absolutely.
Right? And I've learned, and I don't know who said it, I think it was Rick Warren said, that 2 ways you're going to learn: from your mistakes or other people's mistakes. And for me, I like learning from other people's mistakes.
Well, absolutely.
I want to know, and you have to have people in your life that are vulnerable enough that don't mind sharing with you the mistakes they made. So my marriage is so much better than it would have been if I didn't have men in my life to tell me, hey, this is coming. Prepare for this. Watch that. Ignore that. Don't go to that. That helped me in my marriage when it comes to parenting. I have guys in my life, I have women in my life that, Kendale, that ain't no big deal. Stop tripping. Like, you want everything to be spotless and perfect. Just be okay with sometimes things won't always be. And I'm telling you, it has given me a freedom to just like, okay, Kendale, live in this moment, embrace it. Whatever's messy, whatever's not perfect, but find something you can appreciate in it. And I think, to me, when you think about overcoming your past and working towards a better future, Man, Kari, we got so much to be thankful for, right? Yeah. We can find something to be thankful for in every moment, in every season of our life. I just posted it this morning. Be mindful of complaining because it could always be worse.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. And I think that brings us to one more topic too. When we talk about listening to podcasts, reading books, working out, the different things we do, engaging in self-care of yourself is something that can always make your future more positive, right? And more uplifting. You have to find something that you enjoy doing, whether it be talking with your mentors or your older siblings, going outside and spending the day in the weather, delving into books, whatever it is that can help make your mind feel more open so that way you can feel the most positive. Just like you said, finding those little moments that make you feel positive, grasp that, hold on to it, and try to do something of that aspect almost every day if you can. Don't you agree?
And then it leads to a positive self-talk.
Right.
Whenever you could get out in those spaces and enjoy life, enjoy self, you'll start to realize, man, I'm not as bad as I thought I was.
Right.
I don't have to be who I said I was. I could be better than this. Because a lot of it, I'm going to tell you, 90%, I would say 95% of mine is a lot of myself, me overcoming me. Right. Not other people, not what they're going to think, because they got problems too.
Exactly.
Right. So my own self-talk hindered me in a lot of ways in my life. So now whenever I wake up in the morning, I can do it. I will do it. I am good enough. Right. And I think whenever you start speaking to yourself in that way, you start to believe it. Right. So it's only what you put in is what you're going to get out. And if you keep putting negative in, you keep putting daunting things in, telling yourself you can't do things, telling yourself you're not good enough just because of by the world's standards. And the world, I'm telling you, a lot of ways are lost. People pretend a lot and they look like they're doing well and they may not be, like they just have this facade up. So you have to be okay with yourself and start talking good about yourself and talking nice things about yourself. Right.
Well, it's just like you are the narrator of your life story, right? And you're the one who controls your narrative for what's going on. And we talk about that like with social media. Whatever you put out there is a reflection of yourself, but then don't get it confused with other people's. I mean, you're only going to post positive things, right? So don't think that just because that's all they're posting that everybody else is living this like happy, glorious life. But just try to live your own happy, glorious life, right? And celebrate those moments. If it's going to get ice cream with your kids, if it's going for a walk outside, if it's going to work out or speaking with a mentor, just be mindful of those times and, you know, really hold on tight to them to hopefully engage in a more positive future. I think that we're kind of wrapping up here for today, but we'll be back next Tuesday. So thank you so much for joining us today, and be sure to follow all of our social media accounts, The Wildcat Way Show, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Wildcat Way Show, and our iTunes podcast. We'll be back next week with a new topic and hopefully some new social media stuff happening. So thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.